Hey, everybody. Welcome to another week of Soul to Soul. Hey, thanks for joining us this week. You guys, how are y'all doing? What's happening in your neck of the woods? And we know that most of you check us out on the replay. So, however you're listening, if you pop in live or if you listen to the replay, we're just glad to have you with us today. I just looked at my calendar and was sharing with Ame-Lia before we went live that according to my calendar, today is Passover. So, hey, happy Passover to our Jewish and I guess Christian, right? Brothers and sisters who are watching this. Um, I'm curious about Passover. I don't know that much about Passover. So, just like a little note, if you're watching and you celebrate Passover, hey, if you can educate us a little bit, like how long does it last? And are there certain days where you do certain things during Passover period? And you want to share that? I think we would both love to know. So, hey, I'm Joy Ross, and over here is my girl and co host.
Ame-Lia, Tamburrini, so great to be here with all of you and you, Joy Ross, and love our Wednesday gatherings.
Me too. And hey, if you guys are checking us out for the first time, we're on here live every week, every Wednesday, same channels, same time. And we intentionally show up unscripted, unrehearsed, sometimes not even knowing what topics we're going to get into, but just allowing ourselves the freedom and the grace to chat really from the heart and from a soul place about the things that we feel passionate about, things that are on our mind on any given week. And we created this space and really started doing this because both of us were looking at the landscape of how humans react with other humans. And we were seeing um, over the past probably 2 or 3 years in particular, things that neither of us were okay with. We were seeing everything from people not being able to openly discuss and have conversations with each other without being hateful, critical, judgmental, divisive. We were seeing people being uber sensitive and muzzling themselves for fear of saying the wrong thing or offending and not knowing, what exact language to use and therefore sort of shrinking back. And we thought, wow, this is all really bizarre and it's not productive, really. And so in our conversations with each other, we were like, you know what? We don't operate that way with each other. And if this is something that we feel passionate about, let's just create our own space and show up and have conversations. And we really want to encourage you guys to engage in conversation with us because this really is a space where we try to be um, free of judgment and criticism and highly curious about what's on your mind. Like, share and feel free to do that in an environment that is safe. So, do we have opinions? Yeah, we do. And on some things, very strong opinions. And we talk about those things. And that's just part of what we're trying to create here is show up, be able to express ourselves. We think that that's important, just in terms of human beings being free and giving ourselves permission to actually be who we truly are in everything that that entails, including our opinions, our views, our questions, um, our passions. So last week we committed. I don't even remember, Ame-Lia, maybe you remember and you can chime in here. I don't even remember how this came up, but we ended up last week sort of stumbling upon the topic of money and having an aha, like, hey, money, that's one of those topics that sometimes people are afraid to talk about or people are even taught you should not talk about money. And we're like, you know what? For those reasons, if nothing else, let's talk about money. So, I don't know. Do you remember, like, even how money came up? Not that it really matters, because we're going to get into it today. But what's your recollection of how we ended up here?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. That's one of the things that happens when I speak from my heart is that I don't remember what I said. And often I don't remember actually what the other person has shared either in those conversations, but I remember the essence of it. I remember how it felt to me. And I think that's one of the beauties of just speaking what's true for us in any given moment and being less concerned about recording or writing it down or just being there to experience the energy of the dialogue, the flow, what comes up for us. So that's what I remember. I remember it came up. I remember we were jazzed. We thought, yes, this is a conversation we need to have. And here we are. We're here talking about money today.
Yeah, I love that you said you remember the essence. And yeah, I remember too, I think having a feeling of all those things that you said and a little bit of, uh-oh, like, uh-oh, are we really gonna go there? And like for that reason of that little internal, uh-oh, that got me even excited and energized, even more so to absolutely run into it, which I know, Ame-Lia, is something that you and I both are try to be intentional about as well. When we feel any hint of discomfort, instead of running from that, actually lean into it and with curiosity to see, ooh, what's on the other side of this, right? Um, so I'm ready to get into it because I want
Yeah.
to see like what is on the other side of us. I don't think we've ever done this before. We've never shown up here knowing in advance we're going to talk about topic. I don't think we've
It
ever
makes
done.
me, it makes me feel very unprepared.
I know, right?
I know. It brings up all this stuff. I'm thinking as a starting place, I'm just gonna share what my relationship with money is. Is that
Hmm.
cool?
Yeah, go for it.
Or what it has been like. So I grew up in one of those families where money was not a topic. It was like rude to ask people about money and how much they made or anything like that. And money was also used as a tool, a manipulative tool in my parents' divorce. And so um, and then there wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough money, and there was this constant dialogue about who's got money and what we could do, and it created in my body like a really toxic relationship with money. Like, don't talk about it, and like it's used as a weapon. Bad, 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 like all things bad. And I have gone through life with that relationship mostly unconscious, kind of running the show underneath. Now, I've never been without money. That's one thing that I have been able to observe in my journey of money. Somehow, I have always managed to be taken care of. And that helps me just instill some trust, especially in circumstances like I'm in right now, where there's not an abundance of money. Um, I remember that I was like, oh no, I've always been taken care of. So it's okay. I'm still in that circumstance. So I think, let's see, maybe I'll end there just to say that that has been my relationship with money. And it is something that I am actively exploring these days in terms of unpacking those stories and how they're impacting my ability to be with money and and I think just being intentional about what is the relationship I want with money
Mm.
and taking the steps forward to create that, even if it's uncomfortable.
Mm.
Yeah. What about you? What's your relationship with money been? Like, what's the history?
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And, I'm always looking for the laughter, not always, but 99% of the time. So I'm going to laugh at myself right now because I don't think you use this word exactly, but I inferred. Okay, so there was like some discomfort and maybe a little bit of confusion around money. And I relate to many of the things that you shared in your upbringing. And here's my relationship historically. And I'll say this is coming from a place of I have thought a lot about this topic and I've researched it. I've done work in therapy to unpack my own beliefs about money and why I have those beliefs and all of that. And I have searched the scriptures to see, okay, here's sort of what society uh, puts on us or put on me. I'm going to personalize this, right? Or that I took on, that I extracted, whether it was from my parents or um, educational system or friends or the media exposure to movies, wherever it was coming from, right? So here's that sort of the societal landscape where I tend to go also with my curiosity is okay, but God, what do you say about money? Right. So that's sort of, I say all of that because I think it's important to frame like where my perspective now comes from when I talk about money. So my history, my childhood, because that's where it all starts for me, similarly was, I'll just say, a little confusing because on the one hand, like you, I don't ever remember literally not having what I needed. At the same time, I heard a lot of those crazy phrases that probably many of us, and I laugh because it's like, what? Where did these things even come from? But those phrases like, well, money doesn't grow on trees. Okay, well, obviously, money doesn't grow on trees, right? But I heard a lot of that. And at the same time, always had my needs met. So that created this, I think, just confusion around money, like a lack of understanding. I didn't frame it that way at the time, but I think subconsciously I was just confused. Because if it's not readily available, then what's the deal? I just didn't understand like the complaining and the lectures when I asked for things that ultimately resulted in me, for the most part, getting the things that I asked for. So I was confused, right? Um, but where I am now with money is really seeing that it's just a tool. There is no emotion. Money is not a human.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a
Before we go there, can you share a little bit about how that confusion showed up in your life?
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. So just some highlights.
yeah.
So it showed up with me first and foremost, not having an understanding of uh, how to use it, how to manage it, I'm going to use the word that I now use. I didn't use this word in prior years, but now I see money as just another thing that we have stewardship over. So I didn't know how to steward my money. And so I went through the full spectrum. And this is going back like to my teens and 20s, uh, sort of a roller coaster of using money as an outlet to feel better in whatever ways that looked like, whether it was buying myself things or in college years going out and, you know, drinking or, all those things that money can buy, right? So for me, during one season, money provided an opportunity for me to numb and not deal with my feelings and emotions. Oh, this is too much. I'm going to go out and shop. Oh, I don't want to, what am I even feeling? I don't know, but I don't like it. I'm going to go out and grab up some friends and let's go out to dinner, or let's go get some drinks or whatever. You can't do those things without money, right? So at one point in my life, money was a tool for not diving into those deep parts of myself to really understand my feelings. Um, and then I've been at a point with money where money bought me access. Okay. So there was another season of my life where I became keenly aware that money absolutely gets you into rooms, into places and spaces that have built in opportunity that without money, you can't get into those places and spaces. So that was sort of a learning experience. And um, I became very curious. So I simply sort of, uh, I jumped into like experimental mode, right? During that season, like, ooh, let me soak all of this in. Let me soak in who is here. What's up with these people? Oh, how odd it is that there's almost a totally different society, okay, than like the everyday. Money uh, allows that. It's like an access pass, so to speak, right? And I used it because I wanted to see, I wanted to learn, and I was grateful. It was never lost on me that, that's a blessing, right? To be able to go into certain places and spaces that maybe cost a little more. And there are people that don't have the means to do that. Um, and I was intentional about using what I learned in those places and spaces to help others who wanted it, right? To share what I learned, to give other people information that I wasn't given about money. So that's how I've used those experiences. I wrote down some things. I just want to read this. I feel moved to do this right this morning when I was like sort of meditating, and like, here's some things that came up. We don't have to talk about these. Some of this might resonate with listeners. So for that reason, I'll share it. And I asked the question in my prayer time, Lord, what is it that you want me to know about money? And what is it that you would want me to open my mouth and share about money? Here's some things that came up. No particular order. Money is not what we think it is. We have a tendency to make it everything. But in reality, money is the least of things. Money is often used to manipulate and control, which you mentioned, Ame-Lia, was your experience, right? In reality, money is simply a tool. It's a medium of exchange. We give money in exchange for products and services that have value to us. And the thing there is, often value is perceived. So we perceive that something is worth something. I perceive that a certain restaurant, because there's a Michelin chef there, I perceive that that food is better. And therefore, I'm willing to pay significantly more money, right, to get to buy a dinner at that restaurant. It's all perception when it comes to value. Money has nothing to do with our value as a human, but we often make that connection. We often perceive our own value to be equated with how much money we make, what our net worth is for people who talk in those terms, right? Some people are all about what's your net worth. Other people are all about what's my salary. Other people are all about, ooh, how much money did my business generate this year? Or how much money do I have in the bank? How much money Do I have in investments? And we have a tendency to assess all of those things, whatever fits with our individual lifestyles, and we tend to make that mean something about us. In reality, it has nothing to do with our value. Okay, so how we view and handle money is an indicator. This is what I got like as a download, just sharing it how I wrote it. How we view and handle money is an indicator. It tells us something about where our heart is. There's a scripture that says, where your heart is, your treasure is. So if we look at what we're doing with money and where we're putting our money, it will tell us or demonstrate, give us little hints on what we truly value and what we love. Also, it tells us something about our faith and our belief in scripture and how much we trust God. Do we trust him? Do we see him as the provider, the ultimate provider? You mentioned something about trust in your experience with money. In God's kingdom, spiritually speaking, money is simply one of many resources that we're given stewardship over. And with stewardship comes responsibility to use it wisely. The presence, according to scripture, it's the presence of God that makes us prosperous, not how much money we have. It's also the presence of God that gives us power to get wealth. Wealth includes money, but it's not limited to money. There is also a scripture that says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all of these things, including money, everything that we need to meet our physical needs will be added. So part of my relationship with money has been the seeking of what's his kingdom like, and let me try that. Because if that's where the abundance is, if that's where the prosperity is, like true prosperity, not just money, but inclusive of money, I want that. So that's been part of my journey with money. And what I found is his way actually works. His way actually results in having our needs met and having opportunities, um, having doors and windows open, having things come to us instead of the world's way of us chasing things, which can produce results, but often and can produce money, but having money does not produce happiness or joy. You can have all the money in the world and at the same time be suicidal, and at the same time be massively depressed, and at the same time be lonely and unfulfilled. And I speak that from personal, not having all the money in the world, but having more than enough money and not feeling fulfilled, not having real joy, not having real peace. And that was a turning point for me. One of those moments where I'm like, hey, wait, the world's, once again, society has fed us a big old bunch of BS, because this is not what it's cracked up to be. And it was only in me looking for spiritual answers and like, hey, what is up? And what's the deal with money? And like, really, that I began to see, ooh, God's way it works. Wait, there's a whole other way to produce wealth and be happy and have joy and have peace and all those things that I think we all want. And money just, I don't know, it's weird. It gets, there's so much there's so much focus on something that there's so much to unpack, right? In terms of our relationship. So I'm curious, Ame-Lia, about your evolution, because that's a little bit of mine, your evolution with your relationship with money, your perspective on it.
Yeah, just love everything that you just shared. There's so much there we could unpack, and I think we did say this wouldn't be the only conversation we have about money. So yeah, if you are listening, what Joy just shared is resonating with you? What do you have a different experience that you want to share? Let us know. Let us know. I put in the chat on our Facebook. Just what is your relationship with money? Because I think it's important that we talk about it, because then we release the kind of crummy energy around it in our bodies, and having this conversation also normalizes it. I think there's a lot of shame in the conversation about money, and so this is another way that we just hope to dissipate that shame and recognize that it's complicated for everybody. Complicated for everybody, and even those that on the outside look like they figured it all out, maybe because they have money. Like Joy said, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's true, that there could be a lot of unhappiness on the inside there. So yeah, my relationship with money, I think the only thing I'll add, I mean, I resonated a lot with the story that you shared. There was a season in my life where I conflated money with love. And that also stemmed from how I perceived how money was being used as a kid. And that resulted in me like overly giving money to especially my intimate partners, and especially during the breakup phase where we were consolidating things. Like I was just like, just take my money and I'm out of here. And it was sort of that, I was feeling maybe guilty, or there was so many mixed emotions, and I thought, okay, money will help to heal that, or help free me of the guilt that I felt in those particular circumstances. So I've done a lot of unpacking around that particular aspect, and that's just not something that I do anymore. I've sort of separated that with money and love. They're not the same thing. And yet it is, I think, the essence the same. Like love, the energy of love and the energy of money, it's all meant to be flowing and feeling as good. But because we've made it so complicated, we've been conditioned, and money has been used as a tool for segregation and discrimination and a lot of oppression. Our countries use it as a tool to gain power over one another. Like it really is a complicated relationship that I think society at large is unpacking right now. We're about to go through a huge transition in terms of society's relationship with finances and money and how it's handled and all of those things. I really feel that. There's only two things I want to add to what you have already shared, and based on some books, my own teachings that I've been diving into. And first of all, it touches on what you shared about happiness. So I'm an infinite possibilities trainer. That's Mike Dooley's work, and he's really big on manifesting and big into spiritual texts and really tapping into that ancient wisdom and applying that to our lives and really creating the lives that we're meant to live on this earth. And in that manifesting world, a lot of people come into it being like, I want more money. Like, I want to manifest more money. Bring me the money. Like, show me the money. And what he says is like, yeah, okay. And that's not going to guarantee you the happiness, the beautiful relationships, um, the abundance, the feeling of abundance. Like it's not going to guarantee those things. So he's always saying, you know, number one is invite in happiness to your life. Like be open to receive happiness in whatever way that is. And he's like, that's not going to mean, you know, God's going to give you friendships and a roof over your head, but no money. He's like, no, you get the whole package. So like, aim for happiness. And he also says you can't just sit on your butt either and expect it to arrive. Like if you sit on your couch and be like, oh, money, please come to me, that's not going to work. It's like you have to like sort of align your actions with what you truly want and then just start taking those micro steps toward it. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm going to start to honor my relationship with money. What could that mean? Oh, I'm going to start to track the days I don't spend money on things that I really don't need. Or I'm going to start tracking my debt payments and making that a priority in my life, even if it's like $10 a month, I'm going to put away. That's like a signal to the universe to say, okay, this person respecting the relationship with money, and it just can just free up the allowance of it. And then the other thing I want to comment on, and I think that's been true for me when I have done that, is this concept of wealth and sharing Ken Honda's perspective. He wrote, oh, and I'm not going to get the book right, but it's like Happy Money or something like that. And he talks about this concept of wealth, and we get it so conflated with the amount of money, like you were saying, our net worth, the amount of money in our bank account, etc. And what he says is that where he got to in his money journey was not to look at his bank account, but to look at his circle of friends and family. And because as you know, people like Joy and I, we're like out there trying to do big things. We're taking leaps constantly in our businesses and our personal lives. There's risk associated with that, especially when it comes to money. So he was noticing that was maybe holding him back. And I've certainly felt that as well myself. Oh, what if I put my all into this and it lands flat and then I'm bankrupt and whatever? And he said, okay, worst case scenario, I go bankrupt, I lose my home, I'm on the street. How many friends do I have, people in my life that will put me up on their couch? And he just started writing and writing and writing and writing. And this is, and he's like, this is what wealth is. So he now uses like that as more his measure of wealth, like the, how many people in my life will put me up on my couch if all, if all shit breaks loose, if I can say that on here. And I think about that a lot because I've been to a lot of countries, I've been to a lot of very impoverished areas in the world where there is no physical money, no paper money. And I look at how these communities operate, and their social wealth is a billion times greater than most of what I've seen in North America in wealthier communities. And I think that's just another thing to add to this conversation, although we're talking about money, but where's the wealth in your life? And start to make that list, because guaranteed it'll actually make you feel more secure and happier than if you're just focusing on your bank account balance. So that's been true for me. That was a huge saving point for me that actually released a lot of the tension about even diving into this conversation at all.
Mm-hmm. I love all of that. I have two things to add. One is because I'm a fan of getting to the root. So to the road you started going down, which is some perhaps action steps, invitation for people to try some of these out and see what works for them. I'm a big fan of going from the root out, right? And so I think all of this money conversation, and whether we use words like wealth or prosperity or abundance, all of it ultimately comes down to you, the me, right? The individual person and us. So I want to invite people, if you want to go on a money journey, if you want to explore just more, I want to invite you to start with just simply becoming aware and asking yourself and observing, what is my relationship with money? Number one. Number two, what are my beliefs about money? That requires some thought. That's probably not something you could sit down and like figure it all out in a day. So maybe get a journal, right? And start a little section on me and money, because I think starting there will lead each person down the road that's going to be aligned for them. So, whereas one person may have found, hey, it's about the people in my life, maybe for somebody else, it's not about having 50 close friends. And that's okay. You may only have 3 friends or 2, or maybe even 1. That's okay. Um, but what's your start with your own journey? I just wanted to throw that out there just in case some people heard that about the people and like
Oh,
me
yeah.
reacted like, okay, actually, I don't know how many people would allow me to sleep on their couch, but does that really
You
matter?
only need one.
That's right. You only need one. And ultimately, I think that gets to a deeper question of, who do I believe? And we all have an invitation to answer this question. Who do I believe is the source of money? What do I believe is the source of wealth, of prosperity? Those are questions that are interesting to explore. So I invite you guys, if you feel inclined, to take that invitation, explore, and then let us know, if you feel inclined to do so. What are you discovering as you ask yourself these deeper questions about money? I think next week, because we're coming up on time, I jotted down money blocks. So I think that's a good topic to explore. That jumped out at me, Ame-Lia, and some of the things that you were saying, and in how, sometimes we are in often subconscious ways, both wanting more money and preventing more money from being able to get to us at the same time in ways that we don't even know. So maybe we'll dig into that a little bit next time.
I love it. I love it. And let us know too. What do you want to talk about? What's coming up for you in this conversation? Where do you want us to dive into a little bit more? Joy and I are not experts. We're here talking from our hearts and our own life experiences and the things that we've explored, and we're sharing with them. We're sharing that with you in case it's helpful, but really to get a conversation going,
Yeah.
because we're deeply interested. This is an ongoing learning journey for us, and I think the more you're in here as well, supporting us and bringing up what's happening for you, this conversation is just going to get juicier and juicier and more supportive for more people. So please join us.
Yes. Join us next week for more on money. And no, we are not experts. I probably am more of an expert on me, right, than anybody else is. Ame-Lia, you're probably more of an expert on you. And we can share what we've read, what we've experienced, what we've learned, what we've heard others say their experiences are. But ultimately, this is about you and your life and your relationship with money, which is different, right? Each person's situation is different. Each person's life story is different. My goal is just to share sort of my own story and what I've learned in the event that there's other folks like me, who can learn from what I've learned. And I'm still learning every day, still in the journey.
Thanks all. See you next
Thank
week.
you guys. Yes. See you next week. Peace, love, and all the good things.